are over a month into a brand new year, and I think it's about time we get back to talking about comics. So while DC Comics continues its very meh, sinking to the bottom quickly, non-reboot dawn of the DCEU, I figured we wander over to the world of Marvel and see what they're doing and talk about their first major event of the year, the Dark Web. So this is a crossover between Spider-Man and the X-Men, and there's going to be spoilers in this as we talk about the story and I give my thoughts. So if you haven't read it yet and you're planning on it, go ahead, pause the video, go check it out, come back. Otherwise, we're going to be talking about it in detail. So let's get into the Dark Web. This story starts with Christmas in New York, and it's the holidays. The tree is lit. People are out doing the Christmas shopping, including the X-Men, but not all is well in the city of New York, you see, for there are demons attacking. Horrible, horrible little demons are starting to attack the citizens of New York. So everyone is in a panic and in a state of fear, but this isn't a regular attack. No, this is the joined forces of Chasm, the clone of Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, turned into a memoryless thing with some kind of psycho-reactive costume, if I remember right. And then the Goblin Queen, Madeline Pryor, clone of Jean Grey, newly crowned Queen of Limbo by Magic herself from the X-Men comics. And she is very bent because they did not offer her a seat on the Quiet Council. Now her and Chasm have teamed up because they have something in common. They're both clones, and they're both missing bits of their memories. So they figure out the best way to work out their shared demons is to have actual demons attack the citizens of New York. The X-Men and Spider-Man swing into action to defend the city, but they counted on this, and Madeline Pryor had, for reasons, brought in Venom and messed with his mind and basically factory reset him to the 90s. So he's out to eat Spider-Man's brains. The two of them have a big old brawl, which leads to Spider-Man having to head into Limbo, where he finds that demons are going to make him reenact like his teenage years. Okay, so Spider-Man's having to go through high school and deal with demons pretending to be his teachers and old classmates, and they've kidnapped a few of his supporting cast. So Robbie Robertson is there, and J. Jonah Jameson, and a lot of other people with the same initials for all of their names. And they even made like weird demon versions of Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. And that leads us to this new wonderful character, Wreck Rap, which is a confused demon who thought that his goal was to be a better Spider-Man, but also like a backwards Spider-Man. That's why he's Wreck Rap, which is Parker backwards. And he's got the back symbol on the front and the front symbol on the back. He's just absolutely ridiculous. That's what's going on over in Spider-Man. Meanwhile, over in the X-Men, who don't even cross into their own books. It's just kind of a mini series. Venom and Spider-Man, they actually interrupted the series for this story, but the X-Men get their own mini series so that their terrible comics can continue unfettered, I guess. They just kind of do a lot of talking, and they fight random demons, and they talk to Madeline Pryor, and like, oh, we thought we were friends. And there's a lot of pining for Madeline Pryor and Alex Havoc's old relationship, which I always thought was kind of weird since she is a clone, an exact replica of his brother's wife. There's probably some Freud issues there, but this whole dynamic with Madeline Pryor and Havoc led to this wonderful image of Havoc being put into her old costume. Take that, patriarchy. Anyway, Jean ends up brokering peace with Madeline Pryor by giving her some of her old memories of childbirth, raising Nathan Summers, a.k.a. Cable, and this satiates Madeline Pryor. She's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be evil anymore. I give up. But she doesn't get to give up because Hallows Eve, the corrupted old girlfriend Janine of Ben Reilly, says, no, we're not going down like that, and steals her scythe thingy that makes her the Queen of Limbo and gives it to Chasm, which makes him King Chasm, King of Limbo and all its armies. And so Spider-Man and the X-Men have to team up finally to take on Chasm, and they defeat him. It's not that hard of a fight. They end up building a Limbo embassy in the middle of New York. So now there's like this little hell tower in the center of Manhattan, and you can just go there and see demons, I guess. And Ben Reilly's kept there as a prisoner, and Spider-Man can visit him whenever he wants to try to rehabilitate him and see if there's anything left of the good guy that used to exist before he became a horrible villain with no memories, but he has memories because he recreated all the memories that Peter Parker had. And anyway, it's confusing. There it is. That is the dumb as a sack of doorknobs plot of Dark Web. What a waste of time this was. And yes, before you guys go on, I know there was a whole story with Mary Jane and the Black Cat running around having girl time in Limbo. And there was this other plot with Norman Osborn as the Gold Goblin floating about, fighting the Red Goblin or something. And then you had Venom and Kamala Khan and whatever this whole mess was about. So yeah, there was a lot going on with this Dark Web. And that was part of its problem. All of it seemed disjointed. For a crossover, this didn't do a lot of crossing over. So the characters are kind of cross paths with each other while they're dealing with these Limbo events, but there wasn't really like a core thing that was going on that united them until the end when you had King Chasm. And I know this is supposed to be kind of like the spiritual successor to Inferno, which a Marvel event from way back in the 80s, where same thing, Limbo was attacking New York that time back then it was Madeline Pryor, Mr. Sinister, and this other guy named Nazareth, the demon guy. And yeah, that was kind of more like you would see the individual heroes and how the Inferno events affected them, but it wasn't much of a crossover. It was more like an X-Men event that bled over into other titles, where this was supposed to be a true crossover, and that's where it felt really weird. I mean, the X-Men books really just kind of focused on the three, Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey, and Havoc. You know, Madeline being a clone of Jean Grey and her being envious of the life that she felt that she deserved and kind of pining over the relationship over Havoc, but not really caring about it. And that whole storyline was weird, and it was actually kind of dull and a little pointless. And then you have this whole mess of Wreck Rap. This character is just ridiculously absurd. And it made the Spider-Man story feel just goofy. It was bizarre. I mean, Ben Reilly's story in the last story arc that he was in with Spider-Man had a really dark and meaningful ending. I mean, I was wondering what was going to happen to the character next, and you felt for him because he had all these memories of being Peter Parker. They were being stolen from him. They were wiped from his mind by this corporation that he was working for, and you know, he was desperate to get his identity back, and he was resentful for Spider-Man for not cooperating and not just sacrificing his memories so that Ben Reilly could, you know, be Ben Reilly again. And then it leads into this weird kind of cartoony mashup of things that are happening. And I don't know, it felt weird. It didn't feel like a good follow-up to where we left Ben Reilly. The only kind of neat character we got out of this was Hallows Eve, just because I think her design is kind of cool. She reminds me of the Hobgoblin. But she's kind of a weird thing. So who this is Janine, Ben Reilly's girlfriend, who basically just is so devoted to Ben at this point that she allowed herself to have these Limbo energies turn her into Hallows Eve. And she's got these like Halloween masks that she can put on her face to give her different superpowers. And it's kind of neat. Her design is cool, but I can't help but feel like they kind of did this character a little dirty. You know, she didn't ever do anything wrong. Even in Limbo, in the Dark Web story, her only crime is just really being devoted to Ben and wanting to help him heal. And she gets kind of made the villain for that. I will say probably some of the best character moments of the story come from Ben and Hallows Eve interacting with each other. It's kind of this weird Bonnie and Clyde, them against the world kind of dynamic. That brought a little bit of drama and some interest that was keeping me into at least wanting to see where their story went. So that's why I was paying more attention to the Spider-Man half, because that was really, at the end, the only thing that was keeping me invested in the story was the two of them and their relationship. Ultimately, there's a kind of a neat scene where the tides have turned against Chasm. He's lost control of the Limbo armies. Madeline Pryor's coming down on him. The X-Men are trying to get him. Spider-Man's bearing down on him. And before the final fight, he just looks at Eve and says, "We're not going to win this." And then she begs him to stay with her, and he teleports her to safety, and that's the last you see of her. So obviously she's going to be a recurring character. So that was cool, you know, and Wreck Rap, they make a point to let us know that he escaped the Limbo thing, so he'll be a recurring character. So there you go. Wreck Rap is now part of the Marvel Universe. That's good, I guess. But one of the weird things I thought was the X-Men just being a mini-series, because as I was reading this book, I couldn't shake the feeling this felt like the X-Men sales are in the toilet, so why not help them by just kind of attaching them to our best-selling 2 books for a minute and kind of having them cross over with Spider-Man and Venom, because Venom had really no point in this story. I mean, it didn't make any sense why Madeline Pryor had captured him to begin with. It was really bizarre how her plan was to just kind of turn him into 90s Venom and set him loose on Spider-Man. And the whole thing just seemed weird. And then his storyline afterwards just kind of spun out into this weird thing with Kamala Khan. And it had nothing to do with the story at large, just kind of like the other tie-ins, the Black Cat and the Mary Jane, and the Gold Goblin, and all the other just rando books that came out of it. It was just kind of weird. This whole story just felt very random. And I always say one of the things I like about crossover, or when I like a good comic book crossover, is you get a solid villain coming and doing something evil, and the heroes have to band together to attack him because it's a larger than normal threat. And I guess Dark Web checks that box well enough, with Chasm and Madeline Pryor being a strong enough kind of power couple to pull off a plan this bad. But the execution is terrible. The heroes don't ever really come together until the end. All of their storylines seem completely separate. Even the villains themselves, they seem to have different plans. The only thing they have in common is that they're both clones, and they're both trying to kind of get parts of their lost minds back. And it seems like they could have probably gone through a lot less trouble and come up with a lot more compact and succinct plan of doing this. I mean, you would think that the two of them band together and double team Spider-Man first, restore Ben Reilly, and then take on the X-Men afterwards would have probably been a better plan without unleashing this Hell on Earth scheme that they did. But I don't know. So I guess that would have been less of a story, even though this story wasn't much. And ultimately, with the exception of the fact that now there's a big Castlevania-style Hell embassy in the middle of New York, the story doesn't really leave the Marvel Universe any different than when it found it. It's just kind of a here it is and now it's gone kind of a thing, and you can take it or leave it if you want. I don't really think that this book's going to lead to much going forward. I don't see any lasting ramifications other than if you ever want to know where Wreck Rap comes from whenever he rears his stupid head again in the comics. But that's it. Those are my opinions. Did you read Dark Web? Let's talk about it in the comments below. While you're down there, do all the usual things. Hit like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. Share the video with your friends, other comic collectors. And I will talk to you in the next video. See you then. Bye.